It's kind of about exploring other people's letters that ended up in the middle of nowhere, from what I understand. However, when I last tried controlling, I don't know whether I managed to control it or not. It's just... it's a bit... Come on, Kate, be even. I feel like I wear this dress too much to the videos, but you have no idea how comfortable it is. It's just exploring other people's lives. I am so interested in exploring other people's lives, it's not even funny. Dear Victor, I'm retching as I write this. The Dernwood moss pustule fungal spores have ravaged my esophagus, pulsating whilst they persistently swell within me, causing me to agonizingly heave as I pitifully grasp for some fleeting semblance of breath. That is a horrible letter to write! It's a slow, prolonged vomiting motion of sorts, the moist barbs of the fungus root tendrils, brewingly clawing at the gullet nerves in reverse act of digestion. Apologies for the damp globules of spite while I heaved onto the dull cream-colored confines of this crinkled postcard to expel these pale crimson blooms once and for all. Would be an act of euphoric bliss beyond the realms of comprehension. How I crave medical attention! Whoever you are, you want to put down this letter and get some medical attention. Shut up, cat! Ow! It's really also weird to go from like a sad person with expiring memories to a game about really disturbing letters that are stuck in between anywhere. How I crave the giddying notion of sensory normality. The end nears. Though blurred visions, the shadowy specters of death linger in silence. Set against the darkness of the peripheral void they callously lust for, the rasping sight of my final breath. I've marked a spot in the damp overgrowth of the gloom-stricken woods that lay behind my cabin. It is here I ask that you bury me, as my limited time on this mortal plane falters. I feel only the pain of the fleshy gills unfurling as they seep down my trachea to engulf what little lung capacity remains. By the time you find me, I'll have passed. I simply pray that the cruel visage of the rude fungal twisted decomposition inevitably consuming my form will fade with the haste from your memories and scar not your future dreamscapes. Who knew that lifelong passion for foraging would be my undoing? Curse the spiteful hand fate has dealt me. Were I not merely a feeble creature of this earth? Who writes like that? I'll cast these cards aside and spit daggers into the face of this uncaring god. I'll trade all these fleeting moments of joy and merriment spent feasting on my wild harvest for a future in which I have met my grandchildren. I beg of you, speak only of my life and sporadic deeds of kindness, not of the impeding atrocity of the departure I've ill-faithfully carved out for myself. Yours, Dad. What? Somebody's living in Cthulhu land where they got eaten by fungus. Fungus in their stomach that kept on growing. I suggest moving out of the world. Or seeking hospital treatment. Inhaling fungus is actually no laughing matter. You would die from it. Slowly, and the medicines to kill it cost a lot. And they're really, really hard to achieve. Like, years worth of very, very strong medicine to kill fungus. Because yes, mold do infest people. Not like that though. Reader, I'm sure by now you're well aware of the societal depravity of mundanity to the woefully callous disregard for one another as we cast life after life into the infinite molten inferno of death. As the fluid lung epidemic swept our nation, engulfing the plethora of norms we hold precious, we held strong, bolting our doors to protect our fellow kin. Here it was within the smoldering grasp of isolation a small part of us began to decay. Our composition, the baseline empathy we hold for human life, a rotten husk swirling in the grim void of boundless self-serving disregard. With the epidemic still ravaging, we threw open our doors once more, cackling of freedoms, as we covered our eyes to the needles. To the needless desolation. Needles, what's wrong with me? I suppose the other letter was just like, what the fuck? Amassing in the streets, we burned our masks and leant forth to inhale the spittle-laced plumes of community lung juice. Retching spluttered infected matter into the faces of the vulnerable, shrieking to the heavens for normality. Let the weak shield lock them within the dark confines of their homes and watch isolation consume them. We have lives to live and will willingly trample 100,000 beings into corpses for the sweet embrace of everyday mundanity. It is not our duty to protect those in need. The society is bent on capitalistic pride-stricken gluttony acts as charity are a passive deed. The mere semblance of personal inconvenience and the mask slips are petty routines more valuable than the mere right to existence. The bleak shrines to habitable continuity riddled with the broken bodies and crudely performed organs, perforated organs of the unlucky vulnerable masses hidden from view. Sacrificial lambs to the cause, their slow agonizing demises so distant they seem as though a number secreted by news anchors. Families ripped apart for merely shopping outings, chit-chats and jogs. Unconceivable the notion of wearing a mask, how absurd the act of giving others distance, assume the unaware malice of the unaffected and let them drop like flies for the heartless ego of the masses. I feel like that letter had a very... Shut up, cat! Very basic understanding of the pandemic. And I'm not even sure it was speaking about this pandemic. People long to go back to normality not because they are cruel, but mostly because a lot of people are currently starving to death and dying from poverty because they cannot operate their businesses as their money gets funneled to mass corporations such as Amazon instead. It's the business that they will never recover ever again. At the same time, a lot of people got left to die at their homes by the lack of health care, because a lot of special procedures that used to be done, like cancer treatments, were stopped. Or the precautions made the hospitals have a lot less beds for the sick. It's more like doomed if you do and doomed if you don't kind of situation, because the pandemic is really bad and a lot of people did die to it. But at the same time, I can understand the people that need to return to normality because that need is also not malicious. Vincent, my boy, forgive this. Oh, yep, that would be one of the things that we have already read. Now I know which page we're on. That's good. That is very good. Now I know that they're all indeed identical. Not like identical, but like if you read it once, then you know what you read. Let's try the side one here. Oh, wait. No, this was the one that we read. It wasn't the one from Vincent, my boy. Okay, what was the guy writing to Vincent retching then? Do I even want to know? Because the whole fungus thing was kind of disturbing. What were you wrenching, Vincent, my boy? wish I could purge the eyes of the unimaginable horrors I've seen. I have traveled far corners of this earth, witnessing spectacles beyond comprehension and wonder. However, this curiosity that has always pulled me onward toward unfound knowledge has become my very undoing. As I scribble these letters, the 3 sleepless weeks of mine weigh heavy on my being. If you're dying from some sort of vomiting disease, sending other people letters with speckles of your vomit might not be the best idea. Just a thought. My mind falters. Hallucinogenic phantoms silently etch their way into my ramshackle shelter. Scuttling in the darkness of the far corners of my vision, they watch on as my heart palpitations worsen by the day. Insomnia has ravaged my body of mine. I fear that in time it will consume me. Of the countless lies and the bitter poison of fatherly neglect, I ask not for forgiveness or salvation. I can only beg of you not to follow in my footsteps and trust my words but this once. No matter what path your life takes you, never, no matter how much it tempts you nor calls you to the very core of your being, seek the tidal festival of Slate Jaw Cove. 3 long weeks ago, on the dawn of the new moon, stood upon the grey-speckled sands of the shoreline, I bore witness to the culling of the manatee. Never in my life have I seen such depravity as I saw that night. Staring into the sunken eyes of the local village folk, I saw only bloodlust and the harrowing cruelty of humanity laid bare, a sickening ballet of entrail-drenched cleavers? Carving bone and skin from the waters. The piercing screams of gentle ocean giants, choking on the final droplets of lifeblood. As they sank slowly down into the frozen depths, the agony of the ocean death rattle clamoring in. Desperation as the uncaring hands of our kin relentlessly tore countless fearful beings into a mangled pulp tapestry of flesh. The hours spiraling on, a carousel of blades plunging into the darkness of the icy salt water, rudely emerging dripping in unthinkable shades, sands stained with the thick clotted crimson of scentless aquatic butchery. In the chaos I watched as young calves were crushed against the jagged rocks by their fleeing mothers, only for the cold steel to fall upon their spines. And what does this have to do with your illness, and steal the life from the fearful eyes? I wept into the bitter tides, both shaken and deeply broken, as I gazed upon the euphoric malice plastered onto the faces of the village folk. I have a feeling that you guys just have a knack for writing the disturbing. Quivering in disbelief as cheerful hymns of humanity echoed upon the rock formations, the sickening irony of such harmonies hurtling my stomach as I vacantly drew my eyes across the fractured line of decimated bodies, spanning the vast length of the coastline, silent pleads for mercy frozen on the lifeless faces of the manatee. Dear Lord, forsake us, wretched beings. We deserve not your forgiveness nor salvation. We are but the makers of our own hell, cursing this world with our infinite cruelty. That guy died from witnessing death. It reminds me of all of those women that would die for the various weirdest reasons in like early 1900s novels, where it's like they believed the woman to be so frail. Like, I remember hearing one of the vampire stories, because I have on Audible a giant book of vampire stories, because that is what I enjoy listening to. And on that particular one, I wish my cat would stop. On that particular one, the lady was the vampire, but the guy walked in and she did a movement like turning away from the door, like cowering, nearly fainting. And he was like, "Oh, forgive me, miss. It must be the moonlight that flooded into your room that did this to you. It must be hard going from dark to moonlight." And I was like, oh my god, that is such a low amount of light change. And you think that that is what her frail heart couldn't take, like a little bit of light change. To the Commissioner General of the Icelandic Department of Mystery, I wish more places had departments of mystery. I am writing to you to inform you of most peculiar discovery, the putrid enigma of the Mulgarp Strand Tide Pool Fetus Chamber. After receiving a deeply unsettling anonymous tip in the early hours of the morning, I gathered together my investigative tools and set out into the jaws of this winter's freezing gale to witness the aforementioned phenomenon myself. Upon arrival at the bleak ice-swept location, I could sense the air of the deep wrongdoing. What does the air of the deep wrongdoing feel like, pray tell me? A shivering jolt ricocheted down my spine, prompting a cold sweat as I slowly trudged the length of the overcast rain-soaked shoreline. Accompanied by the sounds of the brittle crunches of 1,000 bleached shell fragments washed ashore by the recent storms, I drew close to the harsh gray mass of the jagged slate tide pool, snagging my beige trousers and scrapping thin ribbons in the exposed leg flesh as I clambered over the mollusk-strangled maw-like blades of the harsh, slippery terrain, skin raw and weeping crimson droplets of blood into the salt-heavy pools below. I finally scaled the last of the uneven masses, gazing down in horror upon the ungodly visage of the fetus chamber. The spectacle of a pulsating mass of womb-like mucus engulfing a 5-meter craggy basin. Within the dark maroon depths, submerged just below the slime-film surface, a trashing swarm of malformed embryos, spiraling the liquid into a jarring, almost ritualistic motion. The grim parade of convulsing organic matter, frantically squelching as they blew your bubbles from torn holes, with a twisted resemblance to the human mouth, a nightmare-inducing communion of entities, child spawn of the vast ocean deep. Each of the bustling creatures a gale-clad humanoid fetus, sporting crude webbing, protruding spinal matter, and multiple rows of razor-sharp needle-like teeth, within empty sunken eye sockets and dark inky vision globes, callously strewn around the remainder of the facial ligaments, sickening. There is a way of using your words to a point where your reader will have so many descriptors in front of them that they stop forming an image in their mind's eye and are just very confusing at the garble of words. All of the letters have been overly descriptive so far. When you write in such a descriptive manner, you actually lose what you're describing. Because after some amount of horrific descriptors, my brain is just going descriptor after descriptor, but it's no longer adding to it because the sentence is just too long. Furious, cursing the very existence of this ungodly twisted abomination, I leapt down from my perch and drove my clenched hand down into putrid mass, tearing the mucus-heavy film. So you assassinated a weird sea creature because it looked weird? I mean, yeah, I know that it looked like a fetus to him, like a humanoid fetus, but with like gills, but still the question stands. Of the exposed tide pool womb. The ear-piercing wailing that followed, a sound beyond mortal comprehension. Yeah, no shit, you punched something. A deep, intangible, guttural howling stirred from the very heart of the vast trenches lining the sea floor. This howling aquatic choir split my eardrums into series of deep, irreparable fractures. The mangled stumps gushing cerebral spinal fluid. There we go, that's a word that's too hard for me to read. Plunging me into a blackout state of slumber of which I nearly fallen to wake. I woke 2 weeks later, blurry-visioned and head covered in a thick layer of stained bandages. As I sat on the edge of the rickety wooden hospital bed, puffing handfuls of red mucus into my sweat-drenched palms, I whispered a small prayer. Mortals such as I were never meant to witness the unspoken acts of the Fae. Our brittle human comprehension struggles to fathom. Dude, you assassinated something. At least injured it. I have no pity for you. The murmurs of the metaphysical, how we shy away from the knowledge we are not alone. I write of this as the eyewitness to the extraordinary, a mere passenger in life's mysteries. Document this enigma in your weight tomes. Allow me the respite of expulging these memories. May this find you well, Wilbur Wren. Well, Wilbur Wren, you're one of the worst explorers that I've ever heard, because you saw a thing and you decided to kill it because it looked unpleasant. What the fuck, Wilbur? Jesus. I'm just gonna take off my headphones while it continues screaming at me. Interesting jump scare. I wonder what is going on about. You could actually have done a image that had more impact had you consulted the occult. Oh, shut up, cat! Can I click on this and make it go away? But there were 2 letters left, game. There were 2 letters left. Because after the original, like, jump, you try to, like, figure out, like, does that image, does that GIF do anything more than just exist? The jumpy eyes, the jumpy mouth. No. It really doesn't. Which, for being like a low GIF, has low impact, considering that you were using visuals and that you were using sounds. I can do more disturbing images for you, if you would like. I have a witch friend that drew some very disturbing shit. It will sound a bit insane, but they drew a ghost-like creature that they saw. The thing is, their drawing pertained the creature so well that the whole server just immediately yelled, "My brain." It literally felt like somebody stamped your brain, and the image itself wasn't even like that impressive. It was fairly regular, honestly, a lot more regular than that, but it carried a lot more impact because of the meaning behind it. In here, you threw on some eyes and some mouths without implanting a meaning behind it. And your writing style really needs some work. You want to actually cut down on the descriptors when you write these things, because it starts reading like a creepypasta, and not like one of the good creepypastas where it's like, I read one very great creepypasta about devils and angels and shit, and just God and meaning of life. Somebody like put a lot of work into that, but more of the, you started playing a Sonic game. But the Sonic was so bloody. And the screen was red. And there were tentacles all around. And the screen went black. And the Sonic stared right at you. Except that that language, it gives me similar vibes, on the similar vibes of it's trying to disturb you on the gruesome. Oh, I'm having fungus grow inside my lungs. Oh, there is a fetus inside this cave. That's trying to disturb on the gruesome. Except in this case, unlike in the creepypastas where it's unexperienced teenagers writing them, where they used the same descriptor all over again. Like, it was blood, and blood, and blood, 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 scary, right? Blood. Instead of that, you have a writing that is trying to be overly descriptive. Its voluptuous form was fusing into the wall together with fetus-like face that was dripping wet in slime that it was expelling through its third orifice, that it was its spinal fluid. But it wasn't just spinal fluid, it was special spinal fluid. And the longer the sentence goes off, the more my brain shuts off. After a while, it stops drawing a picture and goes, words. You wanna squish that. It is interesting. But the thing is, I was more interested in trying to connect all the letters together, which I don't think is possible, than I was in... Yeah, like, what's the point? If they were trying to paint the exact same image, I think it would have been a better point.